Very sturdy construction. Comes with a right and a left. Some instructions right here. This is without bags, so I may need to take off the bottom bolts of my bags just to get the clearance. And then what I thought was pretty nifty, they gave the tool for the top bolt, so you got to put it in the back there because there's not a wrench. I actually in another video I made a crescent wrench. I cut the handle and it fits back there, but for this install for the Kings they give you one just to show you the beef. It's an inch. Completely refillable. It's got the piggyback reservoir, and you can change your settings. So tools. Just a little pro tip here. If you're cheap like me and you're sick and tired of looking through bags for the right socket size, screws a PVC pipe. That's where it's at. But anyway, for this install, you'll need 21mm socket. That's for the top shock bolt, bottom shock bolt, and brake caliper bolts. The other sockets you'll need, that's based on what setup you have for your truck. So for my truck, I have the Airlift 5000 airbags back there. They have 9/16 bolts on them. So you need I need a 9/16 deep well socket for that, to reach that hard to reach bolt, as well as an extension 3/8 drive. That's what I had. And then I have a aftermarket Hellwig sway bar, so I just need to loosen those back two bolts for those to get the clearance, and that's 17mm. Also, I'd highly recommend using an impact driver 1/2 inch. That's what I use for the top and bottom shock bolts. There it is right there. Saved me a lot of time. So order of operation. You're going to disconnect your airbag system from the breaker. You're going to depressurize the airbags. It doesn't really matter when you realize to do that, because you'll realize that the airbags are pressurizing or depressurizing when you mess around with the jack there. But that's what you want to do first, and then you'll take off the brake calipers not to mess up the brake lines. Then you take off the bags. Then you take off the you'll loosen those sway bar end links, and you just have the shocks to deal with, the top and bottom bolts from there. An important thing to note here, you're gonna need to jack the truck up quite a bit. Like, you're gonna almost want to lock out that jack just to get enough travel on your rear axle to get the shocks in there. So just know you're gonna have to pump that thing up pretty decently high. Also, a thing to note, make sure to block up both sides of the tire, not like I did there. I did later on in the video, but I should have done it earlier. You'll need 2 jack stands to put on the frame there. Make sure that it's on the same point on the frame on both sides. That way it's stable when you're working under there. I'll need way more clearance than this. Just gotta drop that much more. I don't think my bags will take it. So I gotta take the bags off. I'm thinking from the bottom would be the easiest. So I'm gonna do that now. So I'm gonna do this, loosen this one first. So here I was just fumbling around. There's an issue with the bottom bolt and the bag. So I remember when I installed it a while back, I had a problem getting to it. The problem is the bolt's too long for a shallow socket, and so you have to use a deep well. But the problem is you can't get a deep well in there with the openings at the bottom of that gusset there. So basically what I resort to is getting a deep well and then orienting it upright and then sliding it up to where that slot is by my left hand there. And then what you do is you punch it with the, like an adapter extension. And so you get that. I use a magnet to help me get it in place there. And you can see that there. This took me a little bit. I could have just cut the bolt to make the next time a little easier, but that's essentially what you have to do there. Should have done that earlier. This is my external. That way it's easier to work with here. Okay, let's do this side, and then we're gonna take them off. Time for the top bolts. I'm gonna try mine.
Two down. Same length.
Right now I have the top bolts in the shocks. They're kind of just hanging there. And I'm slowly lowering the axle. And I'm checking to see if it's gonna clear here. That bottom gusset, and it's not. So I'm also checking the lines, brake line, ABS. Just making sure that nothing is gonna possibly catch, or if I have slack, you want to have a lot of slack on that.
This side is lower, so I'm gonna pound the bolt in here first. Way too low. Still too low. All I gotta do is just, all I gotta do is tighten it up. Torque everything down. Put the airbags back on. We'll be in business, baby. Before I put the everything back on, I'd like to note the shaft difference between Bilstein and a King. It's an inch. Side by side reference right here. This is the hardest part of the whole build right here. Strike one. If I didn't have this magnet, man, it was rough the first time. This magnet does wonders. Here we go. Reloader. I'm gonna get my lucky extension. Okay, here we go.
So just to narrate what's going on here, I'm using my pinky fingers to flip the deep well socket in there, and you have to back the bolt out a little bit in there because it's going to keep the deep well socket from lining up with that bolt hole because the bolt's going to get in the way. So you have to back it up a little bit. Once you get it in that spot, you stab it with the extension. You see through the slot there. That's where I got the extension going through there. You stab it in there, then with the other hand you can push a bolt through the hole and slowly thread that nut through.
So I just got the Kings installed. Wow. The back's better than the front. Mile an hour. Oh yeah. I can't even feel it. It just goes right over. It is on the soft setting, so that has something to do with it too. Oh man, I can't feel anything though. Super nice. So initial impressions. Fantastic. It does not disappoint. These are some shocks that have the wow factor. They do not disappoint at all. In my opinion, these this is my honest opinion, having Bilsteins, Icons, and now Kings. Been driving a little bit with these on. I gotta say, these this is the best shock I've had, period. So thank you, King. This is one for the books for sure. I haven't messed with the valve at all, but I think I'm gonna leave it on the softest setting, which it comes in. So yeah, next project, I'm actually going to be swapping these out with Kings since I like the rear one so much. I'm also going to be draining my coolant, and I'm going to be changing the entire rack and pinion. So that includes the outer tie rods, inner tie rods, and the whole rack and pinion assembly. So these are all future endeavors. On the list of things to replace are the coil springs back here. I'm going to replace them with dual rate Carly suspension coil springs, so that's to come also.